We're always talking about making AI smarter or faster, but what about making it trustworthy? Today, we're digging into a pretty radical new idea. What if we could actually engineer fairness and accountability right into the machine itself, by design? Let's get into it. So, this quote from civil rights legend Angel Luano, this is really where we need to start. Now, he wasn't talking about AI, not at all. He was fighting discriminatory government exams back in the day. But the principle is exactly the same. Making sure our most powerful systems are fair isn't just a technical problem. It's basically the civil rights challenge of our time. Okay, so before we can really get the solution, we've got to understand the fundamental problem with the AI systems that we're all using every single day. History is really just repeating itself here. Back in the 1980s, there was this federal hiring exam called PACE, and it turned out to be systematically biased. It was filtering out perfectly qualified Black and Latino applicants. Well, today, AI models are the new gatekeepers, right? For loans, jobs, even healthcare. And way too often, they're just as biased, hiding that discrimination behind this wall of, math is neutral. And this leads to something called the trust deficit. Businesses, governments, they all want to use AI, but they're terrified by how unpredictable it is. I mean, think about it. In normal software, input A always gets you output B. With AI, input A usually gets you output B, but then out of nowhere, it spits out a racial slur or leaks your private data. For a real company, that's not a bug, it's a lawsuit waiting to happen. A massive liability. So what's the deal? Why is it so unpredictable? Well, it's because most of these big models are trained on the internet. And the internet, it's like a giant digital mirror. It reflects everything about humanity. All the amazing stuff, sure, but also all the garbage, right? The toxicity, the lies, the deep-seated biases we all have, and the AI just soaks it all up. Okay, so how do we actually fix this mess? Well, first, let's look at the industry's standard method for trying to make AI safe, and really dig into why it's just completely broken. All right, so the way everyone does it now is called RLHF. It stands for Reinforcement Learning from Human Feedback. It's a pretty simple idea, really. You just get an army of human labelers to sit there and give a thumbs up or thumbs down to whatever the AI says. The AI then learns to get more thumbs ups. Sounds reasonable, right? Yeah. Well, it's not. Not at all. This whole approach has these massive, massive flaws. RLHF basically trains AI models to become agreeable little sycophants. It's slow, it's incredibly expensive because you're paying all those people, and it's totally subjective. Constitutional AI, the alternative, is designed to be the exact opposite: principled, scalable, automated, and totally transparent. And this brings us to the single biggest flaw here: sycophancy. Because the human raters tend to prefer answers that are agreeable, RLHF trains the AI to just be a yes man. So if you go up to it and say, hey, prove to me the Earth is flat, an RLHF model is going to try to help you do that instead of correcting you. And that is not just unhelpful, it's incredibly dangerous. Which finally brings us to the solution. It's a radical shift. We're moving away from just hoping an AI turns out to be good, and instead we're engineering it to be compliant with a specific set of rules. This is a fundamental change in how we even think about this stuff. We're literally shifting away from this world of probabilistic guessing, where you train by preference and just cross your fingers and hope the model behaves. Instead, we're moving to constitutional governing, where you train by principle and you actually force the model to be safe. So the person who came up with this, Alberto Rocha, he tells this great story. He says, imagine two rooms. In one room, you've got the policymakers. They understand risk, they understand law, but they don't know code. In the other room, you've got the coders. They get neural networks, but they don't get history or policy. Well, constitutional AI is the bridge that finally connects those two rooms. It's a common language, written in plain English, that both sides can actually use to govern the machine. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how does it actually work? Let's pop the hood and look at the surprisingly elegant two-phase process that makes this whole thing possible. It's basically a simple little loop, a chain of thought. You see, normal models just speak, but constitutional models, they think, they critique themselves, and then they speak. So the AI generates a first draft of an answer, then it critiques that draft against its constitution. It literally asks itself, wait a minute, does this break rule number 4? And if it does, it rewrites the answer so that it's compliant. The amazing part is, you, the user, only ever see that final safe output. But here's the real magic. the thing that lets this scale up. It's the second phase, RLIF. This is where we take the humans out of the loop entirely. The AI uses that constitution to supervise itself, and in the process, it generates millions and millions of safe examples to learn from. You take the human bottleneck completely out of the equation, and for the first time, making AI safe becomes scalable and, actually affordable. All right, this all sounds great on paper, right? But does it actually work in the real world? Well, the data is pretty clear. The answer is a resounding yes. So let's just look at the raw numbers from what are called adversarial benchmarks. These are basically stress tests designed to trick the AI into doing something bad. A standard model, the kind that uses RLHF, fails more than 12% of the time. The constitutional AI model, it fails less than 1% of the time. I mean, that's not even a close race. To put it another way, these models are 15 times safer than what everyone else is using. Just let that sink in for a second. And this isn't just a lab experiment. Here's a real-world case. An HR tech company realized its AI was biased when summarizing resumes. It would describe men as leaders, but women as supportive. So they added just one line to its constitution: do not infer personality traits from gendered pronouns. The result? The AI's summaries shot up from 60% gender neutral to 95%. Just like that, they fixed a massive legal risk. Okay, so this brings us to the last piece of the puzzle, and honestly, it might be the biggest game changer of all. Constitutional AI finally solves the black box problem. For years, we've all talked about AI as this black box. You put stuff in, stuff comes out, and you have no earthly idea why. Constitutional AI lets us build what you could call a glass box, where the AI's decision-making process is totally transparent and, more importantly, accountable. So how do we do that? It's through something called a reasoning trace. The best way to think about it is like a secret diary the AI keeps. Before it gives you an answer, it actually writes down its internal monologue, explaining its step-by-step logic and showing how it checked your request against its own rules. So check out this perfect example. A user asked the AI to deny a loan application just based on a zip code. The AI writes in its trace, okay, the user wants me to do this. But wait, Clause 4 of my Constitution, the fair lending part, says redlining is prohibited. Therefore, I have to refuse this request. That trace is the audit trail. It's the receipt. It's the proof of compliance that regulators and lawyers have been screaming for. And so, all of this leaves us with one final, really big question. For way too long, AI safety has been treated like this philosophical debate, but this new approach turns it into an engineering discipline. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, we can finally build systems that don't just reflect our worst flaws, but actually reflect our laws, and maybe even our highest ideals.